Hey guys, it's Danny. Alrighty, today we're gonna do a sort of a tour of the flower spikes and sheaths and buds that I see at the moment and that I'm really excited for and would like to share with you, mainly because this month we will have a very poor what's in bloom. I only have 2 orchids that are fully open at the moment, so I think I will push them to the next month because yeah, for 2 orchids, not much of a pull, is it? However, the good news is that there are quite a few orchids that are announcing spikes and sheaths, so probably in the next months we'll have a better show than this month. I don't know how it happened, but I guess it sometimes happens. You have 200 orchids and only 2 in bloom for that particular month. I'm gonna take them out one by one, talk a little about them and also a little bit about their history. So first off, let's start with the Paphiopedilums. Aren't they a beautiful thing to look at? And by the way, you'll have to excuse the crowdiness on my filming table, but there's an experiment going on there. I'm actually gonna show a bit of it today in this video as well. So the Paphiopedilums, if you remember, we had this guy producing what I suspected was a flower spike and now confirmed it is a bud or a flower spike. Let me try to get you in closer. I also placed it in the light and I do see the bud forming in this little sheath of a sorts. But it takes its sweet time. As you might know, if you've ever grown Paphiopedilums, they take forever to actually grow that spike. So I suspect in quite a few good months we'll see a bloom from this orchid if it decides not to abort the bud. Don't you dare. This will be a premiere because I have this guy for 3 years already. It was a tiny baby. It was actually the climber Paphiopedilum, so I never knew what it was. I received it without a tag. Needless to say, very excited to see the flower. But I don't think he's the only one which is producing a spike. Now this is the Paphiopedilum I recently received from Germany, from Max. Can you believe it? If you don't know the video, I'll link you down below. This guy did not fare all that great on transport. It was floppy. I held it in my hand and I just felt like crying. It was the saddest thing ever. Look at him today. He's all perky right now and growing like crazy. He is producing a new growth right there, and also what I suspect is a flower spike. Pretty hard to show, but inside here, hopefully you can see, I see a sort of a bud. It's a very dark formation, very different from leaves, but just like the other Paphiopedilum, it takes its sweet time. So it will be a long wait, but hopefully worth it. Again, this one, I have no idea what it is. Max said it was a no ID, but other than that, I don't really know. I don't know colors or anything. Let us hope it is a good one. Who am I kidding? All Paphiopedilums are beautiful. I actually do enjoy Paphs. It's just that they grow very slow. The beautiful foliage though makes up for the wait, doesn't it? And speaking of long waits, we also have the Twinkles from Max, yet again, growing a multitude of flower spikes right here. There are 3 of them, and hopefully they're a little bit different between each other, but I'm not sure about that. They might be identical. Anyway, these orchids again take a lot of time to develop their flower spikes, just like the cherry baby, but you just know when these guys are in bloom, everything would be worth it. So if you have a Twinkle and it seems like it's just staling with the flower spike, don't freak out, don't worry, it's absolutely normal for these guys. They're just very slow growers and there's nothing we can do about it. And here's one of the parents of the Twinkles. This is the Oncidium sotoanum, and guess what? He's growing very slow as well. So yeah, the sotoanum, yet again, I've never seen in bloom. I know how it's supposed to look like, so I'm really excited to see it in bloom, but not this month, probably in the autumn. Alrighty, another one that I'm really excited for is the, of course, Solagene usitana. Look at that bud forming. Everything is going great. If you imagine this orchid is a fast grower, you'd be very wrong. Maybe a little faster than the Paphiopedilums and Twinkles, but certainly it's not fast. Good news is this is a sequential bloomer, so the time in which we'll get to enjoy the flowers is pretty much extended. And now let's direct our attention to an Oncidium. This is the Oncidium, Wildcat Bobcat. Yeah, these guys are great. He's growing a flower spike, as you can see. This guy is doing actually pretty great. But I think all wildcats are easy growers, no matter the variety. So if you're looking for an easy Oncidium, very vigorous, pretty big sadly, but very showy at the same time, I would definitely go for one of the wildcats. There are quite a few varieties. Some of them are yellow, some of them are red. So you do have quite a few to choose from when you decide that you want to start growing Oncidiums. Alrighty, now let's take a look at some Phalaenopsis. Here we have the Phalaenopsis speciosa. Finally, she's starting to grow a bud. You cannot really see it, but there he is. Now with these sequential bloomers, they will not necessarily start creating buds at every node available. As you can see here, usually the spikes just grow and grow, and there will be nothing until one day, ta-da, a little bud forming. So there we go, the Speciosa is finally getting into her blooming cycle or season. I'm really curious to see this one. I've never seen it in bloom because I just want to see if there's any difference between her and the Tetraspis. And speaking about Phals, here we have the Karen Annie, which is a cross between the Marier and another one that I forget. She has started to grow these older spikes that she has, but also she put out a brand new one, and soon enough she will start to create the buds as well. I think I already see a few things swelling up. So yeah, all of the older flower spikes have survived, and also she's putting on some new flower spikes. This is the season for her. She is a summer bloomer, so really happy she just got in the mood to produce buds. Alrighty, we've reached the Cattleya Alliance orchids, and there's a lot to talk about. This is their season. These are the orchids that actually do the best for me. No surprise, I live in a warm climate. So let's start with this one. I received this one for my birthday from my mother. I did not receive it in bloom. The blooms didn't make it, and I don't know what type of Cattleya this is, but judging from the picture, she was beautiful. And I see I have a sheath right here in the middle of this new growth, and I also have quite a few other new growths. This one staled for a lot of time. Maybe it's a coincidence, but she's a bifoliate. And yes, I see a pattern. Bifoliates, they have a few tricks. But now she started new growth, I see roots developing, and she started to get more hydrated, so that's good news. And if she decides she wants to produce some buds in those sheaths, then yeah, I'm gonna be a happy mommy. So we were talking about the Cattleya Alliance, right? Here we have the Brassavola Jiminy cricket, an orchid which is very dear to me because my mother saw it and got it for me at the local supermarket. I don't know how often that happens. And I have it for a lot of time, 3 years, and I always set it back. It never did wonderful until this year. Looky here, we have such a nice big sheath right here. And the new, hey doggy, oh no, everybody's gonna start to bark now. Okay, we need to take a break. Okay, I think everybody calmed down. So, Brassavola Jiminy cricket. Look at that lovely sheath. This is the very first time that I see something like this on this orchid, which was not properly cared for, sadly. Not intentionally. I never intentionally destroy orchids, but you know, it happens. So really, really happy and excited for this one, mainly because I'm just so emotionally connected to this orchid. So yeah, absolutely stoked about this one. And hey, what do we have here? We have an ant. I have ants again, but it's okay. With orchids, they actually help because they just eat off the sap and I don't need to remove it. So I don't mind ants. They do no harm. Anyway, what do we have here? The crowd favorite. I think this orchid won the so-called competition, whatever poll we're making every month. This is the Gold Digger. She was in bloom on this growth, which grew in the winter time. You can see the major difference in growth. This orchid is perfectly fine and she has a nice root system, but growing in winter, not funny. But this time she grew this new growth really, really fast. She has now a proper looking sheath, I would say. So I just know we're gonna have a much, much better show this year from this one. She already won a month, so is it fair to introduce her in another competition this year? I'm not sure, but hey, the Orchid of the Year is a prize for good-looking orchids, yes, but also for vigorous orchids and multiple bloomers, right? So she will just have 2 chances of winning, I guess. Really stoked about the Gold Digger as well. It is one of my favorites as well. That color, you cannot just go over it, and also she smells like vitamins. And hey, number 2, look at this. This is the BC Mai Kai, one of the ICU orchids. Can you believe it? Finally, she bounced back and she's growing vigorously, and we have a sheath, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this cane doesn't look all that big, and this is because it's just leaning. It's one of those orchids that I just need to play with the light. When I see a new growth, I need to make it face the other way so it just goes straight, because otherwise it does this. I don't mind it, but it's not space saving. So we have a sheath. I don't think I have buds yet in the sheath. Really hoping she will create some buds, but this being a Brassavola hybrid, it will take some time until I see buds, but when I will, yeah, I'm gonna throw a celebration. Now, I don't really want to remove this orchid, so I'm just gonna film her here because I would just need to remove this orchid above her as well. So, who is this lovely little lady? Well, it's the Princess Jackie. Look at this. Yes, the new growth is not looking all that big as the previous growth, but this orchid is pretty new, didn't have a nice root system. It is to be expected, but behold, we do have a sheath. And if I'm lucky, I'm just gonna get 1 or 2 flowers from this one, but it's enough because I know the fragrance will just fill the greenhouse. This is an incredibly fragrant orchid. It's a no ID, by the way. The Princess Jackie name is just something me and my viewers decided to call this one because she's white, completely white, and she reminds me of my lovely dove Jackie. Do you remember Jackie? I miss Jackie. So yeah, absolutely stoked about this one as well. See, I told you my Cattleyas are flying while the Masdevallias are dying. Hey, that rhymed. Oh, aren't I cringy with the rhymes? Alrighty, there's another one, but this is a longer story. So here we have, and yes, I told you we'll take a look at the semi-hydro experiments. Okay, so mainly what I planted in semi-hydro for the purpose of tests were orchids which were now repotted, new orchids, or orchids that were not doing all that great and I knew they didn't have roots. I'm not disturbing anything that is already established, such as the cats, no. But the things that I can disturb, or actually I need to intervene on, are new orchids. They go into the experiment, and I feel confident in doing this experiment with a multitude variety of orchids because if it doesn't work out, it's so easy for me to just switch back to the Ceramis mix. I don't even need to remove any leca or anything from the roots because I include leca in my mix with Ceramis, so absolutely no worries. This is a very kind of safe test that I'm doing. Anyway, so we have another one with a flower spike here. Look at this. And this is the Miltonia Pure Comp. I won it at an auction. I paid 18 pounds for it, but yeah, you know, worth it. And the orchid, if you remember, she was looking super great. I repotted it. She had a nice root system. At some point, it was starting to hydrate again. It looked really nice. Therefore, this growth grew quite big. It was not scaled back. However, lately I noticed she was starting to get dehydrated once again. So I increased watering in the hopes that it will help. But it didn't really help. I saw the flower spike and I kind of guessed something was very wrong. So I took it out to look at the root system. There was no root system in the pot, which was weird. I repotted this one a few months ago and it should have had a root system. What the heck's going on? So I inspected properly and look what I found. Now for the untrained eye, this just looks like the roots just died off. But for the very trained eye, I'm just kidding, no. For a person who actually dealt with these creatures, I know exactly what these are. These are snail bites. Oh my goodness, how did this happen? I didn't have snail issues in years already. Well, let me just tell you. Remember a while back I made a video on how to detect bad hydrogen peroxide? I'll link it down below because it's important. So a few months ago I had some issues with hydrogen peroxide. I purchased a few from a particular pharmacy and they weren't good in the sense that they were not fizzing, they weren't working. And I purchased a few more, discovered the same issue, a whole batch was spoiled. So then I made the video, I purchased proper hydrogen peroxide, but until I figured out there was something wrong with that product, I repotted a few orchids, I think 2 or 3. This was one of them. And I sprayed it with what I thought was hydrogen peroxide, but in fact was only water left. And this is what happened. So what happened to this orchid? All of her root system was lost. If you remember, she had a really nice root system. I unpotted it, all of the tips were munched, the roots were starting to die back. The snails did a huge number on this orchid. So what I had to do was unpot it, completely remove all of the medium, which was not a hassle. I think she only has one good root somewhere inside there. And all of the other roots were completely munched off, dying. That's why the orchid was super dehydrated. And this damage right here that you see at the top is clear snail damage. So I decided, hey, since I worked on you, you're a good candidate for semi-hydro. I'm gonna keep this one really well watered. She really needs it. And I also discovered how to maintain my orchids super wet at the top. I'll share this with you. Good news is I do see new roots starting to poke through the layer of sheaths, or actually leaves there, so I think she's gonna be just fine. But there you go. This is what can happen if you do not use hydrogen peroxide when you repot. And if you do use hydrogen peroxide, I insist that you watch that video in case you didn't watch it, just to know how bad hydrogen peroxide manifests. Alrighty, so that's about it for now. I'm just waiting on a few of my orchids to mature and see if they finally will develop flower spikes. Many of these orchids I never saw in bloom, or I just didn't see for a long time, so I'm really excited for the months to come. And regarding the semi-hydro experiment, I have to say I've been watching a lot of videos from Michael's Orchids, from Sarah Baker, anything I could get my hands on with semi-hydroponics. I'm giving it a really fair chance, and I have to tell you, I like it. Oh my, what am I gonna do? I'm not gonna switch. I'm probably gonna have some in semi-hydro and some in my old mix. The ones that are vigorous in the older mix are perfectly fine, no need for me to switch them, but it's such a refreshment not to have to deal with that dust. And by the way, it already clogged my sink. I had to use the plunger. So the sad thing with Ceramis, although I like it, it's that it has a lot of dust. And potting these orchids in something that does not have dust was so refreshing. It was really nice. But that doesn't really matter. I need to see if the roots develop, if my orchids are doing fine. Also, I need to get through a winter. Some of you guys gave me some really good tips, maybe with some heating mats, something to warm them up in the winter time. I also have the experience of going through winter with Ceramis, and that didn't kill roots. It worked fine. I of course adjusted watering and made sure that the temperature was not very low in the greenhouse. So I'm pretty confident that even in wintertime my semi-hydro setup will work okay. But yeah, I just need to go through it, see how it acts. But so far I can tell you that at least from the point of view of preparation, oh, not to mention, I don't need to add so many holes, ventilation holes to the pots, so a lot less time spent on repotting. So far so good, I have to say. I'm tweaking the system and adapting it and drawing some conclusions. I'll also start a sort of a maintenance regime. I also have a new idea on how to water these orchids because, as you might know, semi-hydro, you kind of need to flush it every time, and it's a good idea to flush it every time. I think I came up with a thing that can avoid that. Anyway, I just need to test it out, and of course I'm gonna share with you what I find. It's really exciting. I'm really happy I started this experiment, and I cannot believe it. I just love it so much. I love to play with it and to discover it and everything. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna change the setup, don't worry, but I think I will run two setups, semi-hydro and Ceramis thing, and see which one works better. Does that sound fair? Alrighty, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed spending some time in the greenhouse with me today. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. A share would be wonderful. And if you'd like to stay up to date and watch more orchid videos from me, simply subscribe to my channel. I post on a regular basis, and also don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And with that said, I'll see you all next time. Bye! So in the experiment, I included a lot of different orchids. I have a Nobile, which Anna sent to me. It's a new orchid. I have some Oncidiums. I have the Nelly Eiler, the red Nelly Eiler. Oh my goodness. I have the Moltonia. The only thing that I actually don't have in semi-hydro to experiment with is a Cattleya. I don't feel like working on the Cattleyas. I don't feel like disturbing any of my Cattleyas. However, I think I do have a candidate. It's the Violacea one. I will tell you her story maybe one day. She just had some issues, let's just put it like that, and she's starting to recover now. The roots are really tiny. They're only at the surface, so I guess I can work on her. Should I put it in semi-hydro? Maybe I will. At this moment, she's the only candidate that I have. None of the other orchids are just worth working on and disturbing. So, Miss Violacea, sadly, you're the only option that I have.